So the question is, write about the life of the Prophet Muhammad's first wife Khadija. You would write about everything that you know about her sending the Prophet to the trade trip and then sending her proposal, and then Maysara, insisting that he's, impressed. Maysara was impressed with Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Then their nikah, then the children she had with him, and then her support at the time of first revelation, and then taking the Prophet to Waraka bin Nawfal, and then also her going to Shayb Abi Talib and supporting the Prophet ﷺ like that. And not to forget that she also supported him when he used to go to meditate. Now, taking two aspects of their relationship, explain how the marriage of the Prophet and Khadija sets a good example for Muslim marriages today. Now remember one thing, when you're talking about, when it's a B part, you're not going to be, because you've given all the information you needed to give there. Now what you're going to do, you're going to pick up two aspects and you're going to talk about the modern day marriage, in other words, the Muslims' marriages today. How can they use it basically? So it's going to be more focused on present day, okay? Okay, so if we go aspects of relationship, if you see, I've got them in two columns now. Prophet ﷺ and Hazrat Khadija Radhiyallahu Ta'ala anha's relationship, and today modern Muslims, right? Now respect. First of all, what do you see in their relationship? Aspects of relationship. You can see respect within the two relationships. The Prophet respected Khadija, and Hazrat Khadija also respected the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Today, modern Muslims, we lack it. Today, Muslim families lack this, the most essential thing in marriage, which is respect. What do they need to do? They need to build it. In the marriage, in the Quran, it is stated that the man, the husband, has one level, has one daraja, has one rank above the wife, right? Why? Because it's his responsibility to pay for her, to look after her. He is the qawamun ala nisa. In other words, he's the caretaker. He's the one that's supposed to look after her. That's why he has one rank higher to his wife, right? Now, what's happening today in modern world? This new trend of feminism, in which they say that why should we cook, or why should we respect, or why should we listen or obey our husbands. That's why today the modern Muslims, the divorce rate today in modern Muslims is increasing to such an extent. Why? Because of the lack of respect. Now all those women who say that why should we make roti, I mean, this is the most lame thing a woman could say. Why should we cook for our husband? Why should we obey our husband? When you're in the house, haven't you ever cooked for your dad? Haven't you ever cooked for your brother? Haven't you ever listened to your dad? Haven't you ever listened to your brothers? We do. And when you become mothers, we also listen to our sons also. So what is a big deal when Allah has ordered the wife to be subservient to her husband? Then there's a hikmah in it, there's a wisdom in it. Why? Because he deserves it. And the day that the woman loses respect, or does not respect the husband, or tries to be big-headed in front of the husband, that is where the marriage tends to break. The reason, you can also mention this in your B part, because remember, they're asking for your opinion, your logic, your reason. How, if I say, okay, Muslim marriages, they lack respect today, how do you know? How do you know that they lack respect? You can look around in the society. Look how women are talking to their husbands. Look how the way they are treating them. Okay, I mean, frankness is something else. Being friendly and being a friend and being frank is something else. But, when you lose respect, that is where things go wrong. So the husband, and remember, it's not just the women, it's the husband who need to respect the wife also. Sometimes, everybody says that, the woman should respect. But I usually tell girls, whenever anybody comes to me claiming that they've fallen in love, when a couple comes to me and says that we want to marry each other, and I always tell them that if you ever have to choose between love and respect, always choose respect. Because love is like iman. It comes and it goes, it dies, and sometimes you feel it a lot and sometimes it completely dies away. But respect, if a person respects you, then the respect will last for the lifetime, unless you've done something so wrong that you lose your own respect. Remember, respect is more valuable than love. So even men should respect their wives. You will never see the Prophet ﷺ disrespecting his wives, shouting at his wives, swearing at his wives. Whereas you see the Muslims, you will see Muslims with the Sunnat Rasul beards, but the way they treat their wives is out of this world. So that is one aspect that needs to be inculcated in the modern Muslim marriage: trust. The Prophet ﷺ and Hazrat Khatija, they had trust between each other. How do we know that they had trust between each other? When the Prophet used to go to Hira to meditate, the Khatija, you never see her complaining. You never see her saying, why do you go there? Where do you go? Why? How? And and making a fuss out of it. Whereas today, if men go out of the house for just half an hour, what do women do? Where did you go? Why did you go? Okay, when the Prophet ﷺ came down and he said that I've just received revelation, she trusted him. She didn't say, no, you're making it up, or I don't believe you, you're lying. No. And then when the Prophet said, when Khadija said, okay, I'll take you to my cousin, you can see the Prophet trusting. Okay, then I'll go to your cousin. So trust. People, many of my colleagues, before getting married, they used to ask me, okay, for a good marriage, for a successful marriage, what do you need? I said, you need trust between the husband and wife. Once you gain each other's trust, and I've also told this to my students in school also, that every relationship, whether it's a student-teacher relationship, whether it's a brother-sister relationship, whether it's a parents and children, kids relationship, whether it's husband-wife relationship, the biggest thing that holds a relationship strong is trust. As a teacher, I want to trust my students that they will never let me down. If I say you're not going to cheat, I trust my students to never cheat. Do you understand? So trust is a big aspect in a relationship. If you lose each other's trust, then no matter what you do, you can never regain it. It can never be regained. So trust is the basic aspect that is needed in the relationship. And how can you build this trust? How can this trust be built? I'll tell you one thing. I'll tell you from my own experience is that no matter how wrong you've done, it could be like, never lie. That's what I've told my kids, that no matter how bad whatever you've done, never lie. Even in a husband-wife relationship, never lie. And what I used to do, sometimes I used to end up fighting with my in-laws or something, when you're young and you're crazy. And I used to come directly to my husband and I said, oh, I've done something wrong. And he would say, oh, now what have you done? Because naturally I was young at that time, and I said, I just spoke back, and I knew I was not supposed to speak back. But what did that do? Every single wrong that I've ever done in my life, I always used to come straight out to my husband and say, I've done this wrong. I know I've done it wrong, but I can't help it. I've just, So what did that do? It built trust. And likewise, my husband has always been true to me. So there's this trust. My kids usually ask me, okay, Papa, where's Papa? And I say, I don't know. And they say, why don't you ask him where he's going? I go, why do I have to ask him where he's going? He never asks me when I'm leaving the house to go somewhere. He trusts me. He knows I'm not going to go somewhere, to some place weird. So when he doesn't ask me where I'm going, why should I ask him? I know. I mean, where can he go? To his friends, to the market, to the city. I mean, because of it's trust that builds and supports a relationship. So the only way that can be built is by never lying to each other. Compassion. What do you see in their relationship? Compassion. Where is it visible? When the Prophet ﷺ comes back from the first revelation and he is literally trembling, and you see his wife being compassionate, covering him, and consoling him. for a husband and a wife, today compassion not visible. Oh, it's only desires. When people claim that they've fallen in love and they want to get married, it's usually they're falling in love and wanting to get married is based on desire. There's no compassion there. When you're compassionate to each other, you're compassionate towards their sadness, towards their troubles, towards their mismanagement. That's feeling compassion. But when people today are uniting based on desire only, a sexual desire or an attraction that they're feeling for one another, in which it is short-lived. So when people enter into marriages based on desire, it's very short-lived, because once the desire is over, after 1 or 2 years, there's no charm. Because compassion is a necessity. You need to be compassionate. Your husband or your wife, they need to feel your compassion. If they don't, then you're just living like strangers. And then, of course, love. It's not like, sometimes I really get angry when people say that, look, the Prophet Hazrat Khatija, she was older than the Prophet and she proposed for the Prophet and their love. And I say to them, excuse me, when you're talking about the love of the Prophet Muhammad and Hazrat Khatija, it was not like they were on some dating mission. They didn't even talk to each other before the marriage. Remember, he was employed. Women, free women at that time, the Azad woman, today Azad woman or the free woman is named something else. It was the slave girls that used to mutually interact with the opposite sex. But an Azad, a Khandani, a woman would not interact with males. They would interact via, their slave boys or the slave girls. So she heard about the Prophet's, his personality via her slave Maysara. And then it was discussed, and she needed somebody permanent to look after her business. She didn't even see him, she didn't meet him, she didn't interact with him. After the proposal was sent and Hazrat Abu Talib agreed to it, Hazrat Muhammad was asked about the proposal. She was known, she was respected in the society. Everybody knew who Lady Khatija was, right? Everybody knew she was a beautiful lady. Everybody knew she was honored and respected, and she was a businesswoman. So imagine getting a proposal from somebody like that. Though of course the Prophet Muhammad said yes. But there was no, because usually you'll see people with a lack of knowledge giving their example as to why you should get married and this and that. It was no marriage before, there was no love before marriage. But all of the love that was created between the two was after marriage, right? They began loving each other after marriage, and it was a love that went on for years, even after the Prophet ﷺ, the Hazrat Khatija passed away. Every time he would remember her, he would start crying. That shows that he loved her so much. And today, your love is compromised. People say, oh, we're going in for love. No, many a times it's not for love, it's for vested interests. Sometimes it's for, a better future. Sometimes it's because you just want to escape your own house or your own miseries. Things that we claim is today, the short-lived love. You know what I call it nowadays? I call it disposable love. It's disposable love in which the opposite sexes think that they have fallen in love, and then they get married. Then I call it disposable marriages. They get married, they realize that they can't live with each other, and then they dispose of the love and the marriage. So what we consider today as love is a compromise, basically. It's vested in something else, not true love. And I usually tell my students that if you ask me what love is, it's what I saw my father-in-law and my mother-in-law. Like, my father-in-law was bedridden. He's now passed away, and he was around about 94 years old. And my mother-in-law, she would just sit the whole night just holding his hand. At that is what I call true love, in which there is no gains. Like, there's no benefit and there's no gain in that love. it's not, there's no desire there, there's no vested interest there, there's no secret benefit or gain that you want from another person. That is what I call true love, and it's based on years. It's based on years. The Prophet ﷺ and Hazrat Khadija's love was based on years of marriage. And after years of marriage, even after she passed away, he remembered her. And Hazrat Aisha once, she complained that, why do you remember her now when you've got such a young wife? And he said, you can never understand. Because she was the one, because he felt the compassion and the love from that side. Now, mutual understanding. What do you see in their aspect of relationship? It's mutual understanding. Whereas today, there is no mutual understanding. It's always, why doesn't that person understand me? You'll see the male, the husband in the relationship saying, why doesn't my wife understand me? And you'll see the wife in the relationship saying, why doesn't my husband understand me? Whereas if you can see, I've got one-sided there. It's one-sided. There's no mutual understanding. You need to understand each other. Why modern day Muslims are divorcing, are separating. I remember when we were young, being divorced or being from a separate family was considered a taboo. In other words, like 1 out of 1 million were separated families or were divorced family. And now, I think out of 1,000 marriages, I think around about 800, or if I take out of 100, out of 100 marriages, I think 80% are ending up in separations and divorces. That's because the core aspects of a relationship today, Muslim modern families lack it. I don't know why, because of modernization or this concept of we are friends and we are free with each other. No. Some things that are basic, that Allah has mentioned in the Quran, that you need these things: respect, trust, compassion, love, and mutual understanding. It is said that as soon as you are brought into a nikah, Allah adds love and mercy into your relationship. And that's a blessing from Allah. But if you push it away, if you're not being compassionate, if you don't show your love, if you don't show your respect, if you don't mutually understand each other, then that is the reason why so many marriages today are breaking up. I hope that answers